After a just absolutely crazy week 16, Dave Kluge, we're going to take a look at the week 17 waiver wire. There's not much out there. I mean, there's also not much left in your league. It's probably just, if you're watching this, it's probably just you and one other person, or you and maybe 3 other people. Who knows? Who knows? But we're going to take a look at just a few players here on the waiver wire, not diving too deep into this, just because you're not having to bid against as many people this week, right, Dave? So how does that really change the strategy for you?
Well, it changes it a lot. Early in the season, you're hoping to get guys like Puka Nakua and Kyron Williams that can really change the next 17 weeks of your season. And you're bidding against 11 or 13 other people in your leagues. Now it's probably you and 2 or 3 other people bidding. The guys that are fighting for first place, the guys that are fighting for third place. And
Right.
realistically, who has Fab left at this point? I mean, if you've still got Fab squirreled away, good for you. Honestly, I love to try to squirrel my Fab where I can, but this is a year where if you paid up early in Fab and got a Puka Nakua or a Kyron Williams or one of these guys, you're sitting pretty. So, yeah, I mean, if you got Fab left, there's a few guys out there that pique your interest, but realistically, going into fantasy week, you probably know who you're starting. And if you're scouring the waiver wire, you're probably not feeling too great about it.
All right, well, let's start with the player who probably has the most value out on the waiver wire right now.
Yeah.
That's Clyde EdwardsAir. After Isaiah Pacheco leaves the game with a concussion. By the way, did you see what happened to Pacheco when he goes to the sideline, goes to sit on the
Fell
medical
through the
table,
table.
and it,
Yeah.
it breaks?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
when everything is going wrong for the Chiefs, everything. So Isaiah Pacheco leaves the game with what's being reported as a concussion. Jerick McKinnon is on IR. And the Chiefs have the Bengals this week. So Dave Kluge, dare I say, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is actually a
No.
league winner.
No. I mean,
Sorry.
that's former first round pick Clyde Edwards-Helaire to you. So put some respect on his name. Honestly, yeah, the volume's probably going to be there, but this Chiefs team, man, I
What is
don't
going
get
on?
it. I don't get it. They don't look good. They keep trying to get too cute with it. It's obvious that they are just missing that guy, the guy in the passing game that can really help bail Patrick Mahomes out. Kelsey, he just isn't himself right now, kind of juggling passes. When he gets the ball in his hand, he's a freight train and he can run through a few defenders, but he hasn't been that guy that is just, dominating games like he has in years past. Obviously, we're seeing the impact that Tyreek Hill leaving has made on this offense as well. And now with Isaiah Pacheco, he's kind of been the bright spot in this offense. And without him, it's Rashee Rice shouldering the load. And he's good, don't get me wrong, but he isn't a game changer the way prime Travis Kelce and prime Tyreek Hill is. And now with Jerick McKinnon on IR and Isaiah Pacheco possibly out next week, yeah, the volume's going to be there for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And yeah, it's the Chiefs offense, but it's just not the same team. The good news is they're going up against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati has had a couple games where they've really let offenses get the best of them. But I don't know, man. Is it crazy to think that going into this week, if you got Patrick Mahomes, you just drop him and you let your opponent pick him up and hope that they are silly enough to start him against you, and you go stream a Nick Mullins or a Jake Browning or something like that?
Uh,
Yeah.
dude, yeah, that's all I can give you is just noises. Spoken like someone who only has one team left in the championship right now. This feels like we got to the point in the year where just fantasy football doesn't make sense anymore. There's not a whole lot of analysis you can give to it. Like we're trying our best here
Mhm.
and looking into the data, looking at the trends, watching the games. And it just doesn't, like, we're at a point where Patrick Mahomes really isn't even considered a top 10 quarterback for fantasy week in and week out. Last week, I felt so icky having him as like my quarterback 7, but I went back and looked at it and just like, you know what? He's never even there. Like he's never a top 5 quarterback over this recent string of games. So yeah, the Chiefs offense worries me, but I think it just kind of goes back to that old tried and true saying with running backs, which is just volume is king. And if
Yeah.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get, let's say 15 touches against the Bengals, you can plug him in as an RB2, I think.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to our next guy here. Taking a look at Romeo Doubs, Packers wide receiver. He's available in 60% of leagues, so it's right at that threshold. And it feels like Doubs has been at that 60% availability all season, no matter what. It's kind of like one of those things where nobody really wants to pick him up, and then you do pick him up, and then you really don't start him, or you start him once and he gives you a bad game. And it's just like nobody really has that confidence in Romeo Doubs, but we're at this weird kind of cross section, Dave, where you've got injuries to Christian Watson, you've got injuries to Jaden Reed. Now you've got an injury to Dontavian Wicks. I mean, yeah, sure. Aaron Jones looked great against the Panthers, which every running back does. But I mean, uh, can you trust Romeo Doubs? He's had 5 games this season without Christian Watson, and he's only had double-digit points in 3 out of those 5. Now, he's had double-digit points in 11 games this season, so it doesn't really seem like Christian Watson is the skeleton key to that. It just kind of seems like Romeo Doubs is sort of that average wide receiver that's giving you average production every week.
And I'd take it a step further and say he might be a below average wide receiver. I mean, early in the season, we got to remember he was like the only year 2 guy. Like, Christian Watson was hurt to start the season. Dontavian Wicks, Jordan Reed, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, all these guys were rookies. So, kind of by default, Romeo Doubs was the wide receiver one to start the season. And if you look through the first half of the year, he was averaging 7.3 targets per game, which is pretty
Yeah.
nice. But since then, it has cooled off dramatically, man. Since week 9, he is pulling just 4.8 targets per game. I mean, he is like, if you look at his target share, his target rate, his ability to draw targets, he's like outside of the top 70 over the second half of the season. He's really fallen by the wayside. So I understand maybe saying, yeah, no Christian Watson, no Reed, no Wicks. The opportunity could be there, but Romeo Doubs is just so much of a touchdown or bust player. If
Yeah.
he doesn't get in
That's
the end zone, you could be looking at a 2 catch, 3 targets, 17-yard game. I feel like there's guys out there with safer floors. We're going to see Tucker Kraft be involved. We're going to see AJ Dillon be involved. If Romeo Doubs is kind of the only wide receiver standing, I think they'll just lean heavier on the run game. So I understand what you're saying. If you're desperate, if you're in a deep league, if you really need somebody, but it's not like there's a ton of wide receiver injuries this week. So if you've made it to this point, I can't imagine many people are in a position where they're kind of desperate enough to plug Romeo Doubs in.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the only kind of redeeming factor about Romeo Doubs is the touchdown rate that he has. Right now, he's tied for 7th in touchdown rate per route run, but he's also tied with his teammate Jaden Reed. And so it kind of just it goes to show you, like, if Jaden Reed is playing, he's probably going to be the primary target. If Christian Watson is playing, he probably also takes precedence over Romeo Doubs. So I think this is all just very contingent. If those guys are out, I think Romeo Doubs is a fine, like, wide receiver 3 flex type play if you need that touchdown boom or bust type production from a guy. But
There's another
other
wide
than that,
receiver. There's another wide receiver I like better than Doubs that might be available on your waiver wire this week.
is that our next guy that we're going to talk about?
Go ahead, drop it.
Look at
I
you.
like this
Look
guy
at
a
you.
lot.
Professional tease here. All right. So Rasheed Shahed available
There
in
you go.
76% of leagues. And listen, Derek Carr just really likes Rasheed Shahed. He's got a great matchup against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are allowing the 4th most points to wide receivers in fantasy. And I see him very similar. He's in that same tier to me as a Romeo Doubs, but maybe a little bit higher because I think there's some more explosive ability there. There's a bigger likelihood for big time plays. So I think he's kind of that desperation wide receiver 3 flex. But going back, last game, 9 targets. Without Michael Thomas, and when Rasheed Shahed is actually healthy, Derek Carr really likes him, and he continues to target him in those deep routes.
Yeah, and if you look, I mean, his season really needs like a healthy dose of context because he was
Right.
injured, then he missed some time, and then he was limited when he returned. But over the last 2 games where he has been at full strength without Michael Thomas, which was week 10 and week 16, saw 9 targets in both of those games. One of them, there wasn't a whole lot of production, just 24 scoreless yards. But then last week we saw him rip off the big touchdown as well and have himself a nice fantasy day. So if you're in a position where you are looking to the waiver wire and Romeo Doubs and Rasheed Shahed are available, I think Rasheed Shahed is going to, 1, draw more targets, and 2, is just a better all-around player, which gives him a higher ceiling. He can score from anywhere on the field. It's kind of crazy. If you look at his testing, he didn't go to the combine, but his pro day testing was terrible. And if you just look at the numbers, you're like, Rasheed Shahed, he's undersized, he's small, he's slow. I don't know what happened. Maybe he just like had a couple McGriddles in the morning and the stomach wasn't feeling
Dude,
right, or playing on a
McGriddles,
bum
good
ankle
pull.
or something. But dude, Shaheed is fast. Like, he can blow
Yeah.
the top off any defense. So don't look at his player profiler. Don't look at his pro day metrics or anything. Just watch the film. This dude can fly. So I'm going Rasheed Shaheed over Romeo Doubs pretty easily.
Yeah. Dave, who like at this point is like, I really need a wide receiver 3 for my fantasy team. Let me go check that combine because I gotta see it for sure. Like, who's doing that?
So many people, when it's a guy that, like, isn't a first round pick, a household name, somebody who's just kind of coming up this year, one of the first things they do is type in Rasheed Shaheed player profiler, and they pull up that player profiler graph and they see,
I
57th
think that's more of
percentile.
like an
And
industry. Like, that feels like one of those like
maybe,
Twitter people things.
maybe. What a speed
They,
score in the 20th percentile. Like, ugh, no, no. This dude is one of the fastest guys in the NFL. I don't know what happened on his pro day, but this dude has wheels. And yeah, now I think Olave, this actually benefits him without Michael Thomas being there because they were kind of using Olave in this role where he was the field stretcher and Michael Thomas was getting the underneath stuff. Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing Chris Olave getting underneath routes,
it was
running short and
beautiful.
intermediate routes, getting a
It was
hefty
beautiful.
target share. And now Shaheed has that ability. And I think that that just suits both of their roles so much better.
Look at Dave advocating for all the nerds with their spreadsheets and their graphs. I love it. I love it. All right, let's get to our final couple players here. Gerald Everett, tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers. He's available in 74% of leagues. And this has been a guy that the Easton Stick experiment has been best for him. Like
Mhm.
it's been most useful for Gerald Everett here, who's had 8 targets in all 3 games with Easton Stick. He's averaging 10 PPR points over his last 5 games here. I mean, he's not going to blow the top off of a defense, and he's probably not going to win you your week. But I think that what you're looking for is when you go for a tight end streamer is a guy who's not going to give you a 0, a guy who's not going to lose you your week. And Gerald Everett really feels like that at this point, and still being available in nearly 75% of leagues, kind of like no one's taking action with him.
And this is somebody who is worth talking about because TJ Hawkinson, went down with a knee injury.
Yep.
Really quick to rule him out. I've seen ACL, MCL, LCL. All the Twitter doctors are speculating, but when somebody goes down with a knee injury and gets declared out almost immediately after with a knee injury, not good. So I don't know what's happening with TJ Hawkinson, but if you have to prepare for not having him, pick up Gerald Everett. Cole Kmet also knocked out of the game with an injury. Some people were counting on Darren Waller when he came back to kind of be the guy, and Darren Waller didn't do much of anything.
Oh,
Taysom Hill has seen his role shrink dramatically. Pat Fryermuth just isn't the guy that we thought he was going to be when he returned from IR. So there are a lot of good tight ends still out there. Don't get me wrong, but there's also 4 or 5 guys that we were kind of looking at as must start tight ends just a couple of weeks ago that either aren't going to be active or can't be relied on. So Gerald Everett seeing 8 targets in every game with Easton Stick so far. Absolutely. Right now, he's my, I haven't done my rankings, but just kind of off the top of my head, I can't imagine he's going to be far outside of my top 12. He kind of falls into the same bucket as Dalton Schultz and Tucker Kraft. And yeah, like I said, ahead of Cole Kmet, assuming, he is going to be limited with an injury. If he plays at all, ahead of Darren Waller, ahead of Taysom Hill, ahead of
yep.
Pat Fryermuth. So yeah, Gerald Everett absolutely is a guy that a lot of people are going to be looking at this week.
Yeah, I've been sneaking Gerald Everett into my top 15 every week, but like right at 15 or usually around tight end 16 or something. And he's been slowly working his way up where he's one of those guys that I think you can just start, stream, whatever you want to call it here, if you're in need of tight end help here for your fantasy championship. All right, let's get to our final, I guess we're going to call it player. Sure. Player or waiver wire ad that we want to look at here. And you know what's better than adding one guy? Adding 11 to your team. Looking
Ooh.
at the Rams DST here, they're available in 73% of leagues. And the Rams, once again, this is not necessarily one of those blow up spots. To me, this is the Gerald Everett of defenses right now, where they've been just good enough. They're not going to lose you your week, right? Like, for example, I went and I started the Cincinnati Bengals this week thinking it was going to be a great matchup for them. They got me 1 point on defense. 100% they lost me my week. The Rams are not going to do that for you. At least that's what we're predicting here. They've had 4 sacks or an interception in each of their last 7 games. So this has been a defense that's been able to kind of conjure up those fantasy points here as of late. And they've, it's kind of like the Saquon thing, good against bad offenses and bad against good offenses. Like that's what it is. Like they'll go and they'll score points. They've had 7 points per game throughout like their last, I believe it was 8 games they've played here. So Rams DST actually becomes pretty solid this week.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I mean, the Rams are back. That's really all I got to say. They have looked so good over the last few weeks. And it's not just Matthew Stafford in the pass game. It's not just Kyron Williams. It's not just Cooper Kupp. It's not just Puka Nacua. It's the defense has really stepped up. And they still have some flaws here and there, but they are opportunistic. They get turnovers, and they are a great pass rushing defense, which translates to sacks, as you mentioned. So, yeah, going up against the Giants, I'd like to see Tommy DeVito start if the Rams, if I'm counting on them, but I think we're probably going to see
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor, and that does make me a little bit nervous. I think Tyrod Taylor is safer. He displayed an ability to actually drive down the field and make some big throws yesterday, but I still think you can rely on the Rams if you need a defense this week.
All right, so last 2 players on here, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to have questions about. We'll probably get these in the comments as well. These seem like such contingent players where like it's an if then type thing, right? So Khalil Herbert and Zamir White. Khalil Herbert, Dave, you and I have been talking about this week after week where you can't really predict what the Bears are going to do at running back.
Don't fall
And
for the trap.
it's been a different running back every week.
Mhm.
It's been the weirdest thing. And this was a game where Deontay Foreman didn't play due to
Uh-huh.
a personal matter, right? So he'll be
Everybody
back
on
next week.
Twitter, it's Roshan Johnson week. Roshan Johnson's going off this week. No,
Wrong,
it was Khalil Herbert.
wrong.
Don't
And then
try.
on the other side,
Don't try.
yeah,
We have 17 weeks of data that tell us that there is no rhyme or reason to what the Chicago Bears are doing with this backfield. Do not fall for the trap, because as soon as you feel confident enough to plug a running back in your lineup,
yeah.
it's going elsewhere. The workload's going elsewhere. Just don't do it. Don't do it.
And everything in my heart wants to say Khalil Herbert is the starting running back there, and he's going to get 20 touches.
And
Everything
everything in
in my
my
heart
heart
wants to do
wants
that.
to say Roshan Johnson, but it's going to be Darrington Evans
Deontay
this week.
Foreman. Yeah, Darrington Evans. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We have no idea. The Bears are just they're poking fun at us.
I
The
don't even
last
know
one
if
here,
Darrington Evans is on the roster for what it's worth.
I don't
Just
think
threw out a
so.
random name. I don't even know where he is
You
right
just
now,
picked the
but
name.
it's not going to be who you think it is what we're saying.
And the last guy here, Zamir White, running back for the Raiders. This
Yes.
was one of the more annoying things that happened for the fantasy playoffs this week, where you didn't really find out till late that Josh Jacobs was going to be out after what am I trying to say here? Temporary head coach Antonio Pierce said, if I was a betting man, I'd
Mm.
bet that Josh Jacobs is going to play. Well, don't gamble, Antonio Pierce. Josh Jacobs didn't play. Zamir White, though, this was one of the weirdest games ever, by the way. We're going to talk about this a little bit more when we do our takeaways from week 16, but what a weird game script. I don't think that we've ever seen this in the NFL, or that we'll ever see it again, where a quarterback does not throw a single pass for the final 3/4 of a game. And Zamir White just gets tons of work.
I mean, he
Uh,
threw passes, he just couldn't complete them.
sure. Sure. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, Dave.
Dude, I can't tell you how many teams, dynasty teams, I've just held on to Devontae Adams because I didn't want to sell low on a veteran. And Devontae Adams hasn't been great this year, but to put up 1.4 PPR
Yeah.
points in championship week, I was livid yesterday, Alfredo. Ruined my Christmas.
Yeah, Devontae Adams and, like I mentioned, the Cincinnati Bengals, they helped me lose to our very own Joey Wright over here in the
Oh,
flex leagues with Jake Seeley and Jamie Eisenberg and all those guys. So Joey beat me, and now he's headed off to go play against Jamie Eisenberg in the championship
I
next
don't
week.
want to rub it in your face, but I also played Joey Wright in the semifinals matchup and stomped him yesterday. So
All right, well, there we go. You've established your dominance over me here on the show. Game over.
But no,
All right,
definitely
well,
starting Zamir White. I don't know if
if
Josh
he
Jacobs is going
plays,
to play or not, but Zamir White, I've been touting this guy for years, man. Like, I think he is a much better running back than people give him credit for. He looked good in this matchup, 130 yards. I saw he's averaging something ludicrous, like 8.8 yards per carry or something like that on the season. I think he's a very good running back. And if he's going to continue to get more opportunity, if Josh Jacobs doesn't play, I'm looking at him, even with the lack of pass catching upside that we've seen, he's still going to be somebody that you can plug in as an RB2. If Josh Jacobs isn't playing, give me Zamir White over Clyde EdwardsAir.
yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that as well, especially going up against Indy. It's been a decent matchup for running backs, and you know, I don't even think it's going to be a talking point. I think this is all moot because Josh Jacobs was close to playing this past week, and going into week 17, it feels like it's just going to be Josh Jacobs going back in there again.
Likely.
But like you said, if he's out, Zamir White becomes an instant start. Just hopefully it's not one of those situations where we find out a couple hours before game time, and it's too late to make any real moves. All right. Well, on that note, Dave, this was our last waiver wire episode of the season. How do you feel? Is a weight
um,
lifted off your shoulders?
No, I'm going to feel a little empty on the inside. It's been
That's
nice
what it
waking
is.
up and kind of digesting a week of football and talking about these things. Excited to start getting a little more creative. That's what I like about the off season. In season, it is very much so, as our general manager Clayton Gray likes to say, a Groundhog's Day, where you're just kind of doing the same thing week after week after week after week. It's waivers, then it's takeaways, then it's trade targets, then it's starts of the week, and it is fun in the off season when we get to kind of look back at everything and get a little bit more creative.
Spread our
But
wings.
I'm gonna miss it. Yeah. Best of luck to everybody in their finals matchups. I went in yesterday. I know nobody cares about my leagues, but
We
going
don't.
into last night's game, going into Monday Night Football, I was in 6 semifinals matchups. I was projected to win 5 of those 6. playing against Christian McCaffrey in 4 of those 6, and I had Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel stacks on my team in 2 of those 6. So went from projected to win 5 of 6 to winning just 3. So got 3 finals matchups next week. Looking forward to it, but man, going up against CMC, that's just a way to ruin your Christmas.
You hate to see it. Well, for myself, for Dave Kluge, we want to thank you all for watching this episode here on YouTube. We're going to continue this conversation over on the audio side of things, where we're going to talk about all the takeaways from this last week of games. And if you are in your championship week, this is the information that you want to get. This is the stuff that you don't want to miss. We're going to be giving you kind of that preview of what to expect here going forward, and make sure that you are ready to win your championship. For myself, for Dave Kluge, we want to thank you all for watching throughout the season. We'll see you next time. Adios.